When you focus on the evidence uncovered during the investigation, you will appreciate there is no serious dispute about the facts underlying the president's conduct. And this is why you will hear the president's lawyers make the astounding claim that you can't impeach a president for abusing the powers of his office, because they can't seriously contest that that is exactly what he did. And so they must go find a lawyer somewhere. Apparently, they could not go to their own attorney general, who was just reported in a memo he wrote as part of the audition for attorney general, which opined that a president can be impeached for abusing the public trust. Couldn't go to Bill Barr for that opinion. Couldn't go to even Jonathan Turley, their expert in the House, for that opinion. No, they had to go outside of these experts, outside of the constitutional law, to a criminal defense lawyer and professor. And why? Because they can't contest the facts.
This is the undisputed star of Trump's impeachment, Congressman Adam Schiff, pointing out the irrefutable claim that the reason Trump's legal team is hinging their defense on the notion that abuse of power isn't impeachable is because there's no way to defend his actions. In other words, their best bet, and it's not a bet I would take, is that, okay, sure, he did it, but you can't do anything about it. This comes on the heels of Trump's lawyer, Alan Dershowitz's recent television appearance in which he tries to make that case, that abuse of power isn't impeachable because it's not a statutory crime, meaning a crime that anyone can be convicted of in a regular court of law.
You have a lot of evidence, disputed evidence, could go both ways, but the vote was to impeach on abuse of power, which is not within the constitutional criteria for impeachment, and obstruction of Congress. Those are both the kinds of things that led Hamilton and Madison, talk about nightmare, to regard that as the greatest nightmare. Number one, giving Congress too much power to allow the president to serve at the will of Congress. And number two, as Hamilton put it, the greatest danger is turning impeachment into a question of who has the most votes in which house, and rather than having a consensus and a broad view of impeachable conduct.
Of course, that theory that you can only be impeached for a statutory crime is widely debunked, including by who else but Alan Dershowitz himself during Clinton's impeachment.
It certainly doesn't have to be a crime. If you have somebody who completely corrupts the office of president and who abuses trust and who poses great danger to our liberty, you don't need a technical crime.
Because what would the Republican Party be if not contradicting itself with some glaring hypocrisy at every turn? Now, realizing that it's effectively impossible to defend Trump on the merits, the president's other mouthpieces, like Rudy Giuliani and Matt Whitaker, have also taken to repeating this claim.
The general theory is, of course, that impeachment is in the hands of the House.
Right.
With unlimited power. Wrong. No such thing as unlimited power under the Constitution.
Okay.
Every constitutional power has limits. So what are the limits of impeachment? It's written right in Article 2, Section 4. It has to be treason, bribery, high crime, misdemeanor. Abuse of power, and the other ridiculous obstruction of Congress. You can't find it anywhere in 18 U.S.C. You can't find it under common law. You can't find it in Lithuanian law. It doesn't exist as crimes. So they have rendered the Constitution of the United States and its words meaningless. It's as if they took the Constitution and struck out the words.
Abuse of power is not a crime. Let's fundamentally boil it down to, the Constitution is very clear that this has to be some pretty egregious behavior, and they cannot tell the American people what this case is even about.
But to be clear, yes, a president can be impeached for abuse of power, and no, impeachment is not limited to only the crimes expressly written in Article 2, Section 4 of the Constitution. Because when you actually read that portion of the Constitution, it says that a president must commit, quote, treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors to be impeached. That does not mean only treason and bribery, it means everything that falls under the category of treason, bribery, and other high crimes and misdemeanors, of which extorting a foreign country to cheat in the next election, abusing one's office to enact such a scheme, betraying the oath of office, corruption, and violating the Impoundment Control Act are all certainly a part. Consider too that during the framers' time, misdemeanor meant ill behavior, evil conduct, fault, and mismanagement. In other words, if Twitter was around in the 1700s, Trump probably would have been impeached much sooner. But in all seriousness, we don't actually have to wonder. Alexander Hamilton actually wrote that impeachable offenses involve a, quote, abuse or violation of some public trust and, quote, relate chiefly to injuries done immediately to the society itself. In other words, the impeachable standard of high crimes and misdemeanors didn't by any means require those acts to be violations of federal statutes or limit them to just bribery and treason, but instead simply include acts committed by public officials that inflict severe harm on the constitutional order. And I'm not going to pretend to know exactly what Alexander Hamilton was thinking, but I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that running an international extortion scheme wherein you leverage nearly $500 million as a bribe to get a foreign country to hand you dirt on a political opponent probably falls under Hamilton's definition of an abuse of public trust and harming the public order. Fast forward to modern day America, if Republicans truly believe that abuse of power wasn't an impeachable offense, they probably wouldn't have impeached Bill Clinton for exactly that. And yet, shockingly, none of these brilliant legal minds on the Trump team were on television arguing against Clinton's impeachment because abuse of power wasn't impeachable back then. How convenient. And yet that goes to show the extent to which the White House doesn't have a leg to stand on, that their only defense is some clumsy interpretation of the Constitution that they themselves are on record undermining. And yet that's the best they've got is a testament to just how guilty Trump is of committing his indefensible behavior.